Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure everybody in this room who's here is interested in Thailand and all that you've seen on the news besides all the politics. Can I have a quick show of hands of who's here is planning or looking to invest in Thailand in the next 12 months? Okay, so a few familiar faces, few investors. Who is planning to expand to Thailand or has business already in Thailand? Excellent. Okay, so a few more. And who's here just loves Thailand and Khao San Road and cheap beer? Okay, everybody, thank you. That's all there is really to it, Thailand. It's not a bubble, it's just buckets of whiskey, cheap rum. Okay, so over the past 3 years, as my name is Aim, and we run Hubba, which is a very active co-work space and ecosystem builder for Thai tech startups. We've seen amazing growth from nothing. So no meetups, no pitch events, no tech conferences, barely any active angel investors or syndicates, and everything, of course, exploding since 2012. Multiple reasons for that. We have loads of great talented teams that have never really been uncovered, and one of that team is built, successfully pitched at Echelon 2012, that moving forward, we've seen this momentum and rise not only in number of new startups emerging, but also telcos and now government supporting what we now know as the rebranded, soon-to-be rebranded Ministry of ICT into the Ministry of Digital Economy. So my contemporaries here are all the leading the startup ecosystem thought leaders and founders. And we're going to deep dive into the question. So to not waste time, I'm going to ask everybody introduce themselves, and then they just answer whether is it a bubble or not. So, Tiwa, would you like to be the first one to kick off?
Sure. I'm Tiwa. I run Kaidi.com, formerly known as OLX Thailand. We're a C2C marketplace focused in classifieds in Thailand. Business is about 3.5 years old now. So is it a bubble? The answer would be no. A bubble would mean it would have had to have actually blown a bubble to blow it up and actually pop, and that hasn't. If in the region, if you look at the region, compared to what's been happening in, say, Vietnam 7-8 years ago, what's been happening in Indonesia, say, for the last 2 to 3, 4 years, Thailand has yet to hit that striking point where it starts to really get serious investment. So my opinion is, no, it's definitely not a bubble.
Well, no, I agree with you, but we'll see if we have differing opinions. So, Mimee, since you're like the one of the biggest thought leaders in the tech media space in Thailand with Tech Sauce and Thumbsup, we'd love to know, over the past, I think you've covered the tech ecosystem, even before there was an ecosystem. What's your thoughts from a media perspective?
So from my side, actually, I think that right now it's like too early stage to judge whether it is the tiger or the bubble. But actually, I cannot say that it is the bubble. I have seen a lot of the rising star in the tech startup in Thailand. I separate in two parts. The first one, more focusing on the proprietary technology, like a big data. We also have like a FinTech technology as well. And another two part of the tech startup, they are also good in terms of the business development, like Kun Mu Uk Bi. They find out the new business opportunity before the main key player from he knows that, okay, like the Amazon will not come to this region, or like Kun Yod Wong Nai also have seen, this is the Yale will not come soon. So he sees the opportunity in this region and start to localize their own business to support this region. So as I mentioned, so we still have a lot of the tiger. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So not bubble for sure.
Got it. So a lot of untapped verticals. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So this big fellow over here is really one of the biggest thought-leading fintech startups in Thailand, Max. So you've recently raised lots of money. Are you a bubble or not? I mean, that is supposedly to tease him.
Your size bubble.
Are you a bubble?
Yeah, consider from the size of body it should be. Okay. But anyway, for Thailand, we still you can count on your hand if like Tiwa said before. Actually, we prepare very well, right? We like discuss a lot about this, and we still don't have enough success case yet. And if you're not success that much yet, it's just very beginning. So I would say that it is too early to say that it is like bubble already. A lot of like you need to see a lot more success guide, and like raise a lot of money, and then they like go down and just very like very too early. And actually we are starting, and what we see in past few years, we have a lot more people into the ecosystem, and we have a lot more people to help the industry. For example, like accelerators or like telco providers. For example, like ourselves, we run a startup called Stockradars, FinTech, and at that time, it's like there's no FinTech in Thailand yet, because we got only like, when you talk about Thailand, it's just sea, sand, and sun, right? Not FinTech at all, or startup at all. But from the help of telco, like AIS, like Singtel, for example, they like help us to spread around in the regions. And I would say this is very, very beginning of Thai startup ecosystem. So there is a lot more to grow. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So almost unanimous. Let's hear from an outsider investor perspective, Frankie, since you're with our Ardent Capital, and you've been recently joining us in the Thai startup ecosystem. We're speaking from an insider perspective, and of course, it's not a bubble for us. Do you feel differently?
I mean, I agree with our fellow panelists. I don't think Thailand is a bubble. However, from an investment point of view, I think valuation are at its peak. A lot of startups are raising funding at a very high valuation rather than focusing on the business itself and the scalability. I mean, Thailand has unique potential. It has the sort of talent. It has the investor base. It's a strategic locations, one of the highest sort of internet penetrations and sort of social media sort of stats within Southeast Asia. So there are a lot of potential opportunities. There are a lot of sort of family conglomerates right now are pivoting their traditional sort of businesses into the e-commerce space. I think that would take some time because of all the bureaucracy, but I think within 6 to 12 months, I think it would be a very interesting time within the e-commerce space in Thailand and rest of Southeast Asia.
Awesome. So unanimous, no bubble. Interesting valuations going on right now. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so guys, before we go any further, don't forget, send your questions to Pigeonhole. We love to have you jam, and of course, we're going to be trying to give you some good insight. So whatever that's interesting for you, especially from a Thai perspective, do send us our ways. This is a electric panel of thought leaders. They have all the answers that you're looking for Thailand. Okay, so with no bubble, that's out of the way. Now let's talk about tigers, because Thailand is often compared or benchmarked against our contemporaries in Indonesia and Vietnam. And Tiwa, I know you've been operating regionally, and you've been working with all your classified peers within the group. What are your thoughts on us actually? Have the potential to be a tiger, and are we on that track?
So I guess Thailand's been frustrating. The way I describe it, after having been working in digital for over 10 years there now, like I said, 7, 8 years ago, we saw all this investment going into Vietnam. And then 3, 4 years ago, we started seeing all this investment going to Indonesia. And here we are sitting in Thailand going, hey, what about me? Why is everything going over there and over there? And if you look at it from a GDP perspective, you look at it from a population perspective, actually Thailand's extremely attractive. And from an infrastructure. Now, some of the issues that have kept Thailand back, one is political. We've had political unrest since 2006. From an outsider's perspective, it looks like, oh my gosh, is Thailand safe? And the reality is, yeah, it's still a land of smiles. Things don't change. That's just the government. And I think that's held us back. I think there's another one, which is a language barrier, which Thailand suffers from in terms of English speaking. But those are the topics that have held us back from the investments coming in. There's another aspect of this, which actually AIM is also humbly talking about what he does at Hubba. Without AIM, we wouldn't have the startup ecosystem that we have today. He is the catalyst behind that startup ecosystem, everything that's happening in Thailand. So it's really awesome what he's done. And what we've seen over the last couple of years, we've seen the startup ecosystem just begin. And it's at a very early stage. Right now, the problem that we see is we see the exact same people pitching their wares, and it's not diverse enough. We aren't getting enough of the population involved. We also don't see enough investors coming in. Everybody wants to invest, but it's not an easy place to invest. If you look at the regulatory side of it, investing in Thailand is actually really difficult. The business laws, foreign business investment laws are actually quite arcane, and it's actually really difficult to set up the proper structures in order to get investment in. So these are the things, in my opinion, that have held us back, despite the fact all your work and Mimee's work and Ardent's work to try to push the startup ecosystem. And this is why I say we're still at an early stage. To call us a tiger, I think we're a long ways away. We're maybe a cub, a tiger cub,
Okay.
In terms of where we're at in this process.
Got it, yeah. There's going to be another interesting analogy in terms of animal coming up soon, so it's going to be funny. So tiger cub for Tiwa, all points valid, agreed. And Mimee, Max, Frankie, have anything to add? A different animal to compare to? Come on, Max.
Young tiger, I
Young
can say
tiger,
that.
okay.
Young tiger. Compared with the startup community, it looks like a pyramid. At the top, we have the cream, as I mentioned before. We have the company who are trying to create their own proprietary technology, like, as I mentioned, like FinTech. Or another interesting company that I also love is called Jita.com. But right now, he's go to the San Francisco to find out the big opportunity there. Another one that I think we have seen there are a lot of the huge opportunity is related with the hardware startup, like Megasu, like Next, they're trying to build the ecosystem to support the mega startup. So this is I can say that it's like the tiger soon. But I cannot see another interesting area because I have got the question from within Japan. They want to see like ad tech, this is like, and also the big data. We have some of the big data startup, but not many, just a few, like one or just 2 or 3 companies. So I expect that we should have to not just only focusing like a mobile app or just like entertainment or lifestyle, but we want to see more from another area, as I mentioned, like ad tech and the big data, which is show we have like a strong innovation.
Got it. I totally agree. I think there's many rooms, many opportunities, and I think we'll get back to that topic in the future. So Max, anything to add?
I think for us, we are very open for like letting people in and out and exchange all those experience. For Thai people, we are more open than like any other country in the region. So I would say like the mindset and like the people, and also we are still very hungry to be success. So this is the key of the people who can like let it get going in the futures. And as Mimee said, there is a lot of startup that try to aim in different area, and the market is big enough to make success in the country itself, and also when you can like prove some model, you can scale out, or maybe from somewhere else you can like tap into the market and expand a lot more. So this can be like huge in terms of, because most of the startup we still like very starting, so the environment is there, everything is there, so just waiting for people to come in and make it have a lot more fun to get it going. Yeah.
So there's an interesting point that you just talked about, Max, which is over the last 3 years, we as a group of people have invested a lot in terms of educating the Thailand ecosystem. And so one of the difficulties that you had in Thailand was a misunderstanding of what startup meant. And a lot of the industry, and we're still working through this, which is an understanding of creating entrepreneurship of being an SME. And so a misunderstanding of the people that are doing startups going, hey, I want to own this business forever. And there's been a lot of education on going, no, what a startup means is we can scale this. This is getting big, people want to invest. And when they're saying they want to invest, it means you as a founder may or may not be part of this at some point in the future. And so a lot of what we've talked about over the last 2 to 3 years has been, hey guys, you want to do a startup, that doesn't mean you're creating a coffee shop or a noodle stand. It actually means you bring on an investor. The investor wants to scale, an investor wants to exit, and that investor may exit you out of the business. It's about creating something that's going to grow and maybe outgrows you as a person. I think there's across Asia, it's true, and it's been a standard thing of a very Chinese business attitude of going, hey, look, I hang on to this. I think Thailand's a little bit late to the game of understanding of what a really startup means. And it means growing something, building something that's great, scalable, but not necessarily being, it's my baby, I'll own it forever.
I think that's a valid point, and that actually answers one of the pigeonhole questions is what's one of the most important components of driving the ecosystem, and that's education. The ecosystem is built to deliver, of course, great opportunity and social impact. But in the end of the day, we need to get people along the line to start creating scalable companies. And that starts especially emerging ecosystems with education, with getting people to build the right type of product, right ideas, building the right teams, building the right financial structures, getting ready to fundraise, having all those concepts. We are still at the tip of the iceberg in Thailand. We preach startups every day, but in the end of the day, it's about these teams actually taking what we share on stage and actually implementing this. And it's been a very long process, 3 years. Still the same faces on the panels, but it's still hustling.
Actually, I would say I am like one of the results of you guys that helped to create the ecosystem, because at first we run the company, the software house, traditional one, and very Chinese way. We want to stick with we want to own it 100% and don't want someone else. Please don't step in, because we don't want to let someone else to mess up with our life. And then it turns out that, hey, what you guys doing, and need to learn a lot more. And there is a lot of case that traditional way of software house change itself to be building the product or service, because this is the key for it just like some attitude that you need to change a lot until you understand what exactly going and what can leverage the playing field to help it grow up a lot better. Of course, if you run your own business, it's still okay, it survive, but it go nowhere, because if we don't open enough, then it just cannot scale. And then what next? Just do another software. So with more and more people like me, we're gonna start to think that, hey, if you want to go further, so we need to be more open and be just like Tiwa said, we need to if you get it or not, and if it scale up, it's just 1% of 1 billion or 100% of 1 million. So that is the game. Yeah.
But it's true. Aside from from an investment point of view, a lot of people tend to focus on the valuation itself, claiming that their business is worth X dollars. But instead, they don't tend to focus as much as scaling that business, and that the future of the business it's probably 10 times or 100 times more than what it is. So instead of actually a fraction of something, it's a much higher percentage of a bigger pie. So it's finding the right business, being able to focus on a business and scaling that business. It's the key factor within the e-commerce space. Yeah.
Got it.
I think actually Ardent interesting case on this, because Ardent's been operating since 2012, and the big question I get asked from the guys is Tiwa, have you seen anything that's worth investing into? And it's been tough to find things worth investing into. Yeah.
So the thing is, within the startup space in Thailand, everyone's very interconnected. And we see ourselves, aside from being a venture capital firm, is an operating venture capital firm. We help our portfolio companies. We are very hands-on with our portfolio companies. we pretty much create that sort of value creation plan in trying to integrate all our portfolio companies to see how that we could drive that into growing much quicker than other startups. And that's where we see our difference. Yeah.
Actually, that's a great segue, Tiwa. You're actually helping me out. Who's going to be the tigers of the Thai ecosystem? Who's worth looking at, worth investing, and are going to be the thought leaders of Thailand in the few years to come? That was one of the top voted questions in Pigeonhole. So,
As in who? As in
who?
people,
Like
companies?
teams, like startups, actual
Startups.
So, Frankie, as an investor, I'm sure
you share your deal flow, bro?
No, I mean, there are a lot of interesting, startups. Hubba's being one of them. We look into a lot of deals. It's been harder and harder to pick, the right deals. So we're very diligent in terms of the deals we picked. It has to be sort of Southeast Asian focused, scalable within multi sort of territories. But yeah, we kind of look into deals where it complements our sort of e-commerce stacks within the verticals, how it sort of interrelates within logistics, retail, B2B, B2C sort of segment. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So Mimee, so you've mentioned a couple from the question here. You've mentioned a couple that you're hot on, that you really think are quite exciting because you spend your time looking at this. What were some of the names that you've referred to, that the hot startups at the moment?
It was Ukbi, one, right?
Ukbi being one of them.
Ukbi.
For those of you who don't know, Ukbi is a
ebook store.
Yeah, it's ebooks and magazines, and they created a solution for kind of Southeast Asia where Amazon was missing the gap because of local language stuff, local language magazines, put in a subscription base that you get on your mobile phone. Yeah.
Another one is, as I mentioned, the Jita.com. They are focusing to help the investor, the VI side, not the technical side, the VI side that want to see the value in the long term. So, for example, I'm not good in terms of the investment because I don't have the time to see what is the movement on the stock exchange. So Jita.com can recommend and what is the good company that we should invest at this time. So they provide like the scoring, the benchmark for the investor in Thailand. And not just only in Thailand, they also have the NASDAQ stock too.
Okay. Of course, we have Stockradars.
Yeah, and Stockradar is, I think, that more focusing on the technical.
Okay.
We are too close to each other, so should not be biased. No, just kidding.
Totally different, right?
Yeah, in different fields. We are more on technical side, but anyway, what we aim for is to simplify. And by the way, with that one is what they are doing more likely on fundamental stuff.
Fundamental.
Yeah.
Different market.
There's a couple portfolio companies in Ardent as well, Moxie being one of them.
Moxie,
up front.
which we acquired in December. So we're pretty much rebranding Moxie and scaling that to Indonesia and rest of Southeast Asia within the next 6 months. I'm going to be biased. Also, ECommerce, that's been doing very well for us. ECommerce is a full service logistic company. Yep.
Right. A lot of familiar names. A lot of great companies. My quick question though is, we talk on stage and every year we mention Ukbi. Is Thailand churning out enough great, awesome founders and teams, or do you see that there's these cubs turn into tigers, but are we seeing new tiger teams emerge? Tiwa, I'm sure you have a strong opinion because you're a lot of mentor, you're a head coach in so many startups.
So the simple answer is no. Like I said earlier, we see constantly the same faces. One of the issues I get asked often is, okay, so who to invest into? And we talk about a few of these startups. Problem is, again, to Frankie's point, is that the valuations go really fast. And so these guys are getting valuations at $20, $40, $60 million immediately. And it's like, whoa, how did you come up with that number? And there are some people investing at that number. And so you've got kind of the same faces at very high high costs these days. I think there's a lot more to go in terms of the speed at which we're generating these startups and really getting the experience under the belt. I think we're in a very extremely early age. If you want to profile a standard Thai startup founder today, basically probably went to international program in school somewhere or studied abroad, is somewhere in the age range of 24 to 30 years old. Probably comes from a tech background or a programming background or design background. And it's a very small system at the moment, and this really needs to expand. We also need capital to expand it, and we need some successful exits. The other problem in Thailand is the amount of exits that you can count that are publicly known are very, very few. And so I think this is why I still call it a hub. I think we have a lot of growth to go. And so a lot of the companies that are going into the startup space, they're extremely early stage and not easy to invest into. You'd have to be a pretty courageous angel in many of these cases to put in at this stage. And so I think there's a lot more development. And I compare this to, say, Singapore or where Indonesia's at, where Indonesia really took off and you see a lot of development happening there. Hopefully Thailand will follow that, but it needs more capital to get there, in my opinion.
Fair points. So I think segue to a quick question that's about it on Pigeonhole is around that same topic. Is we've seen all this valuations go up, but one of the questions is is this sustainable? And because there's a lot of people are still worried about political uncertainties, and I think Thais have the best barometer being on the ground of is there going to be another military intervention or whatever, and also the economy. We all know that it's humming along, but it's kind of sluggish. And is that going to affect the growth of the Thai startup ecosystem, in your opinion?
I don't think the political factor would have. Thailand's a very elastic economy, right? It keeps coming back, but just stronger in a way. In terms of evaluation, it's just being patient and finding the right companies and finding the right people to work with. We would be careful in terms of how we deploy our investments and really, just find the right people in the business.
So for me, at least at Hubba, the co-working space suffered massive shock, especially during the political unrest. 50% of our membership base people just stayed back at home or left to another country and chilled out in Bali and all that. But it is definitely really elastic. After the coup and everything, all the folks that really love Hubba or Thailand, they came back. So it's an interesting thing where people have lived in so many coups, they're pretty much used to it, and they're like business as usual. For me, just a young 28-year-old guy, 3 coups is cool. Shit happens, right? How many for you, Mimee? 5?
5.
Oh, yeah. I knew it. 5. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
But to answer the question, what's interesting about Thailand, being from the States originally, people always call me, oh my gosh, what's happening in Thailand? Yeah, it's fine. It's I think from a outsider perspective, it looks like, oh my gosh, what's happening? The reality is the business community keeps things together and it continues to hum along. So I think there needs to be a bit of perspective when you're analyzing the country from an investment point of view of saying, okay, there's the politics that are happening, and then there's the reality of what's happening in business. And so people see this stuff on the news and like, oh my gosh, Bangkok is burning. And it's like, oh no, that's a very small part of what's happening in Bangkok or Chiang Mai. But reality is things keep humming along. Are there definitely risks? For sure there's risks, as in any emerging market. We operate as a group of companies. We operate in basically emerging markets. Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, Indian subcontinent, Africa, and South America. There's always risk in these areas, but that also is what makes them exciting for growth areas. Everybody's pumped about Southeast Asia right now being the next place to grow, but there's a lot of risk in that as well. And it's because these are early markets and there's still a lot of things that need to develop in terms of regulatory issues, just the digital economy stuff, and talent. Talent is the other key one that we struggle with. And when we look for talent, it's tough. It's hard to find the teams. It's hard to find the talent, as we all have suffered from in each of our companies. It's finding those great people that can come in and plug in. And we've talked about, okay, should we import? Because there's just a lack of the experience and talent there.
Yeah, so I like to dig that a little deeper, because I heard many stories from you of trying to hire and which talent is most lacking within the ecosystem, and what are some of the challenges you're trying to address? Like, we have not seen that many Thais outsource or set up development centers offshore. Are there some of the approaches you're looking into?
In terms of tracking down the talent?
Yeah, or diversifying your talent base.
Basically, we've spent the last 18 months really focused on developing the talent that we have and investing into our team. Believing one thing, it's not that there's a lack of talent. There's tons of talent. It's more of investing into it and growing that talent. So as a company, we've dedicated ourselves to growing the talent that we have, because we couldn't find the people that we were looking for. For example, in BI, big data, non-existent in Thailand. And the very few talented people that you have are mad expensive. So, if you want to get a job in Thailand right now, I suggest go into big data, because you're going to you'll jump job to job and you'll double your salary, because every bank and every telco wants you. And finding it for a company like us was extremely difficult. And even then, that talent was, their experience base was really small in terms of big data and data science. That's just one example of, there's still a lot of development that needs to happen, and the education system doesn't support it right now. So.
Yep, we're back to the fundamental problem of the Thai economy is education and politics, and both things we're not going to touch on this panel. Thank you. So we've answered that question. Now we actually have another segue into another interesting question, because one of the things that always happen on this panel is we talk about exciting trends in startups, and all the startups we mentioned are basically from all the big tech conferences that we run at Hubba, and we look at the breakdown of people, where they come from. It's usually people in mobile startup space. They're into content, e-commerce, and then a little bit in SaaS. But actually, there's other opportunities in IoT, as Mimee has mentioned. One of the questions, top vote and Pigeonhole, is like, is there exciting opportunities in less developed areas or other sectors like ag tech and all that? And whether are we seeing startups sort of diversifying into more different industries rather than the traditional ones that are very consumer, very social focused? So Mimee, do you have any insights as media? Have you been covering any exciting ag tech?
Tech still cannot see it. We have the ad network technology, but
Agriculture.
agriculture still cannot see it. But actually, we have a lot of the resort in terms of the agriculture. But I cannot see that who can disrupt, like using the technology to reach and make it to increase the quality of the life quality of the people in Thailand. Yeah. Okay. But I expect and hope to see it soon.
So basically, it's still an open vertical for somebody to disrupt.
Yeah. Like two industries that I want to see: agriculture, and another one is medical. In Bangkok, we are very strong in terms of the medical. Like I have seen a Japanese guy or like the people from the Middle East. I think they come to Bangkok for the healthcare. But I cannot. But I cannot see that how can use this kind of the standard and using it like a technology and apply it in the other city, like in the northeast or in the south of the Thailand. Yeah.
Got it. Interesting.
I just seen one startup. They're doing about medical tourism. and like they got like very good business model to like take people from outside to like be in Bangkok or like be in Thailand, and I think it's quite very interesting area for like to grow up. For example, if you want like plastic surgery, you may go to Thailand, or like maybe I don't know. It's kind of very huge in Thailand for medical.
Medical tourism, actually, Peter Kennedy from Berta, who was on stage yesterday, just mentioned that he had invested recently into a startup in this area in Bangkok. Agricultural tech, I agree. There's lots of med tech. The other one that I think is a great opportunity is green tech. So if we look at the energy sector, there's tons of disruption to be had. If you look at it just from a Thai perspective of what can be done, very little work's being done in these areas at the moment. As opposed to some of the developed, and I want to contrast this a bit, some of the developed sectors in Thailand, much around the automotive industry, is a very developed sector, lots of investment in there. If you look at like, for example, hard drives and some of the semiconductor industry in Thailand, extremely developed, a lot of investment in those areas. So there's these other areas, I think, in terms of a startup perspective, that we still have a long ways and a lot of opportunity to go. And I want to make sure, I want to clear something up. I kind of sound possibly a bit pessimistic. Actually, I'm really optimistic. But I'm just trying to paint a realistic picture of Thailand rather than just saying, hey, everything's beautiful. It is a beautiful place. I love it there. I enjoy what I do, and I think there's mad opportunity. But there's definitely the challenges that we have, right?
And that's why on the panel is keeping us brutally honest and not just go Thailand, amazing Thailand. Exactly. That's good insight. And actually, how about FinTech, Max? Because you're in that space, and we're seeing a massive booth outside. We're seeing a lot of activity in Thailand.
To be frank, for Thailand, we are, if we compare with some other country in terms of FinTech, of course, you need to aim for Singapore and Hong Kong, which is you guys compete to each other. And for Thailand, we have like some talent in terms of FinTech, but I would say frankly, we can't compare with like a finance capital like Hong Kong or like here. But the good thing is the boundaries of the country is not that high anymore. I mean, like even we like have different cultures, different country, but sooner or later we share the same cultures, startup cultures, which is everywhere is the same. So instead of compete with Hong Kong or Singapore, we rather be friends with them. So the best way to compete with the big guys is not to compete. So just be a good friend. And I see a lot of opportunities out there in both countries. And for Thailand itself, if we want to check on if in the FinTech area, there is no one yet doing like P2P lending. There is no one yet doing like maybe microfinance and every single thing. All of those games still with that big corporate. And also even P2R said green technologies, although electricity in the stock market, they are boom like crazy because every single company, they're going to do some like solar powers and like maybe pyrotechnic power sort of thing, but not for the startup. So this is a huge area that if you can help the big guys, and the big guys definitely need you because they need a lot of innovation. And I saw that in the region, like for example, like Maybank, they just got the programs that they want to get some innovation. I do think that they want to, I do think somehow we do feel that the big guys feel that we need some innovation from the smaller guys. So the main reason that they want to do, they may try to, I don't know, check whether like which one can be the next big thing and just try to like work with all the startups. And this should be very huge. And I see Accenture, I see in FinTech area, especially in FinTech, Accenture working with a lot of startup in Hong Kong, Maybank for the whole region for Southeast Asia. And more and more bank, I heard that they are looking for more startup because they want to look a lot younger. It's always like a big corp. They need to look like more faster, younger, and more fun for like chasing their dream, sort of. Yeah.
Another area that I also seen that there are big movement like travel industry. The founder of the AirAsia, right? They jump out and they create their own incubator. And in Thailand we also have running the another travel edition for the startup weekend soon. We work with Amarit. So I think that the travel is another travel and hospitality is another area that the big enterprise will jump out and support the startup.
So building upon existing strengths of Thailand, medical and that, and also opportunities for somebody to become Elon Musk in Thailand. Frankie, would you like to add anything?
No.
Are you investing beyond e-commerce Southeast Asia?
No, I mean, for now, we're just very much focused within e-commerce in Asia. It's just, that's where our strength lies. For the past, 4 or 5 years, we've kept our foot on the ground. We've created this platform and have been very fortunate to have invested in great companies that has done very well in terms of returns, and we'll continue to focus within the e-commerce space, whether it's B2B, B2C, FinTech within Southeast Asia.
I have a question for you, if I may, which is, what about payments? I think, where do you see opportunities in payments in Thailand?
That's an untapped space for us. We've always wanted to look into investing into some sort of a payment startup. We just haven't come across a good one or an opportunity yet. I think that's why we've kind of, when we had ECommerce, which is the logistic full service company, we kind of had to pivot because of the low sort of credit card penetration. We had to, offer the cash on delivery sort of payment mechanism. In Thailand, credit card penetration is so low. I think it's going to take another 12 to 24 months to pick up. Unless, we come up with some sort of an innovative approach, that's going to be a problem that's going to continue to
share some stats on that. If you guys go look up the stats, I think it's 19 million credit cards in market. Is that correct? It's 19 million today. However, 19 million out of 67 million, the number of actual card carriers is estimated about 3 or 4 million, right? Maybe 5.
It's less than 1%, I think, right, or something?
Yeah, it's a very small number of actual card-carrying members. So these are the struggles. Even though you see the credit card penetration, debit card penetration is actually quite high. There's about 40 million debit cards in market, and banking, there's actually a very high penetration of it's not unbanked market. They are banking, but they're not internet banking. But doing debit payments is also a whole nother hassle in terms of the payment ecosystem of the ability, all the steps you have to go through to actually make a debit payment. These are some of the struggles that Frankie's referring to.
So, aside from struggles, it's really about, in Thailand, when you're in startups, it's not about, identify all the struggles. It's more about how you resolve these issues and just find ways to grow your business and just, It's about solving the problem versus, identifying the problem. You just have to be quick and to just pivot and just move forward.
We're seeing some good news around payments in Thailand. We've got big payment association go and talk with the Bank of Thailand, and there's a lot pushed to solve that, for the benefit of all startups within the ecosystem. Credit card penetration is way too low, and I know that for a fact because my mom holds 10 credit cards. So she's not helping out the ecosystem. She's barely using anything except line stickers. So I think we've answered that great question. And also, we've got about 5 minutes. We've been answering loads of stuff on Pigeonhole, so keep sending them. But I think, there's a lot of realism that's going on the panel. But there's also going to be some optimism that's coming up in the Thai ecosystem. We're going to have hopefully a long stretch of political stability, and also a big push by the government around the rebranding of the Ministry of Digital Economy. Mimee, as part of the media community, and you've been actively involved in many of these roundtable discussions, what can we really expect genuine government support in the coming years within the tech startup community? Or is whatever that the government's about to execute, is that going to actually have an impact in and the trajectory of the ecosystem?
From my side, actually I don't expect much from the government compared with the other, like in Singapore. But we are trying to do our best to like work with them and how to. One of the projects that I have seen that they are trying to create is related with the angel club. And most of the angel currently they are invest in the stock market. But the key point is how can we turn them to how can we change their mindset that investing in the startup are totally different from the stock market. It's totally different. The concepts are totally different. So the key point is our key player in this industry, also like a supporter like us, we can give the feedback to the government and let the government tell the angel club to, that don't expect that you will get the money very fast, same as the invest in the stock market. So this is the one thing that we can do and work with the government. But for the another area like educate to build a strong fundamental and educate how to create the right product or how to create the right product to serve the right customer and find out the real pain. This is the part that I think the supporter like us or incubator, like for example, Founder Institute or Disrupt University that we work with. I think this one is the way that public sector can do. But for the government, I think that they are good in terms of the policy, just provide the policy, but we can give them the advice. Yeah.
Got it. And I think that's a lot of that's happening already. A lot of us are in those roundtables. But one of the other unique thing about the Thai ecosystem is actually a lot of that is private sector and corporate driven. And I think PMAX has been a strong beneficiary of that. Ardent Capital has been strong. And I'm sure, with Kaidi, just actively pumping all that money into the ecosystem and helping so many people to learn about startups and digital. I think it's
probably just worth sharing what Mimee is referring to is there's a digital economy legislation that's been proposed and it covers things like data privacy, there's cybersecurity, there's lots of different things, which is actually good. There's some questioning around whether it's overstepping the line in terms of freedom of speech and things like that. But generally speaking, I can honestly say that it's actually good for the ecosystem because it's actually setting some baselines for Thailand, which we have been missing. Prior to this and the current legislation that's enacted, we have the digital documentation legislation of 2001. We have the Cyber Criminal Act of 2007. That's it. And if you look at those two pieces of legislation in the digital space, it's extremely limiting. Actually, it's missing. I shouldn't say limiting. There's nothing there. So these developments is what Mimee is referring to around what is in development and these policies that will really help provide the future of Thailand. So.
And do you think that that'll be beneficial to e-commerce players?
Look, us as a group, I mean, we're mad excited about Thailand, and we're very, very bullish on the market. If you look at it from a stats point of view, look, if anything you read in the news about Thailand stats, they're all bullshit. So let's talk real. The reality is there's about 35 million online today. There's about a third of the market is smartphones. The growth of smartphones is huge. Penetration is happening at the low end of the market. For our business, we do about 8 million uniques a month. We do about 27 million page views a day, 800,000 visits a day, and 70% of my traffic is all mobile. So the mobile market is huge. If you look at the success of Line is Thailand's unique market from Line. So Line's latest reported numbers, 34 million downloads, and we estimate they do about 22 million daily actives. And their business in Thailand is amazing. It's a breakout market for that. You look at these things that are happening, and it's an incredibly exciting opportunity today. And the people that are coming online today is really the story I love to tell is about Uncle. And the story I love is at the market. I go, Uncle. I was walking around the market. He's selling secondhand like antiques. And this is the difference in the market. I was walking there, and since we're a C2C used goods marketplace, Uncle, do you have a smartphone? Yes, I do. Uncle, do you use the internet? No, I don't. Uncle, do you use Facebook? Yes, I do. Uncle, do you use Line? Yes, I do. Uncle, do you use Google? Yes, I do. Uncle, do you use the internet? No, I don't. Oh, okay. And I think that development in the market is an awesome opportunity. And we're seeing that type of penetration happening. And what we talked about 15, 20 years ago in this space was ubiquity. That was a popular word back in the late 90s. That has an idea of how old I am. But the late 90s, ubiquity, and we're finally getting there. And that excites me in terms of the market. I think there's awesome opportunity. So my thoughts.
Agreed. I mean, when your mom can turn on a smartphone and line you, but she can't turn on the TV, then that means something. Totally agreed. So actually, adding to Tiwa's comment, the legislation, it's going to be probably like a $900 million stimulus package into the digital space. Numbers are still up in the air. We really have no clue, but there's a lot of stuff are going to be formalized and systematic so that it will help set the stone for the growth of the future of the tech and digital ecosystem in Thailand. So a lot of excitement and a lot of debate around that. Hopefully that is done by Q2. So you're going to see a lot of ramp up of Thailand in the news for a good reason later half of this year. All right, so we have 2 minutes to go, and I'm going to look into Pigeonhole to see some exciting questions. There's another one around expanding outside of Thailand. As there's been successful cases, are we expecting more Thai startups to rock regionally rather than just being an inbound market? Who's going to do it? Stockradars planning to go Asian-wide.
We try our best to expand it out, but first of all, we need to make it strong before we scale it up. So we rather to be a bit conservative at this stage, and when we're ready, of course, we want to go out. But for example, for Singapore market, we already here. So the next step should be Indonesia, of course, like the size of the market itself. And one good thing about Thai startup to the region is about we are very open for all the cultures. So we are happy to everyone. So it's very easy to work with a lot of people. So that should be the key that help us a lot. Yeah.
Got it. So good base for regional international expansion. Thailand, a great choice. Frankie, you're investing in a lot of companies and going, Indonesia big time. Is the mantra of being a Thai as your, first base port of call, is that still ring true for Ardent Capital?
I mean, it's true. I mean, we grew out. I mean, we started in Thailand. Thailand's been our home. We've invested in a lot of companies in Thailand. It all worked well for us. But I think it's also capturing that growth. And I think Indonesia is where the hot money is at, startup has been, exponentially kickstarting off. It's all about, being able to capture, being in the market at the right time, at the right moment. And we just don't want to miss that opportunity. I think the next couple, aside from Indonesia, I think Vietnam is also a big market within Southeast Asia, and within the next year or so, I think a lot of startups would arise from the Vietnam market as well.
Okay, so Thailand's a great place to do business. The wrap up is that Thailand is ready for many disruption in multiple verticals. Whatever you see in the news is bullshit, and on the ground, it's an amazing place to be. Land of smiles, loads of great entrepreneurs on the panel, loads of capital, loads of angel money coming in. Great time to do business. So that's a wrap. Thank you everyone for your time. See you in Thailand.
Thank you very much.